Hello. Very good morning, everyone. I hope you all are good. Uh, it's been a long break because I was not well, so need not worry about that. We will complete the remaining portions of budget and FSR very quickly, as fast as possible. Okay, so don't worry about that. It will be completed definitely. Yeah, I'm better now, so I'm fine now. That's why classes were not happening. So let's begin with the remaining part. In the last class, as far as I remember, we were discussing the third priority in the budget, right? The third priority, which is inclusive human resource development and social justice. We were discussing this under this priority highlighted. We were discussing the Purvodaya initiative of the government. In the Purvodaya, we have discussed that the government aims to develop industrial centers, industrial nodes, corridors in the region, in these regions like Bihar. So we have discussed the schemes of Bihar and all. The next we have to continue from here only, and the next thing in the series in the Human Resource Development Initiative priority, Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act is there, right? So Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act was there, which allowed for the separation of Telangana from Andhra Pradesh, right? So under this, the government is committed for what? So government is saying that we will make concerted efforts to fulfill the commitments in the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. Whatever commitments we have done for the development of the state, right? We will continue that. That is also highlighted in the budget. Also, recognizing the state's need for a capital, the government will facilitate special financial support system. So the government is planning to facilitate financial support system through multilateral development agencies for the region, right? So remember, government is focusing on financial development of the region. Next, in the current financial year, almost 15,000 crores will be arranged with additional amounts in future years. So in the current financial year, for financial development or providing financial assistance to this region, government has allocated how much? 15,000 crores for the current fiscal year, okay, current financial year, 15,000 crores. And remaining in subsequent years will also be, additional amounts will be generated. So remember this amount, 15,000 crores. Next, the government is fully committed to finance, and the early completion of Polavaram irrigation project. Now, this is something very important. You should remember this. So, government is continuously focusing upon the development of Polavaram irrigation project. Now, this is a very important multi-purpose project, irrigation project. This is situated on which river? So, it is on river Godavari. Right? So, government plans to assist financially the completion. So, it is under construction completion of Polavaram irrigation project, which is the lifeline of Andhra Pradesh. So, it is lifeline of the state. So, that's why it is important, and the farmers of the Andhra Pradesh as well, right? So, it is multi-purpose irrigation project. This will facilitate our country's food security as well. Once the farmers are secure, that there is food security, okay? No question about that. So, we need to ensure security of the farmers. So, this is also one of the highlights of the budget. So, this is just a few additional information. So, this project, as I told you, is under construction, multi-purpose irrigation project on river Godavari, right, in the Eluru district and East Godavari district in the Andhra Pradesh, okay. All right. So, see, these videos, are not so long, but the document itself is so long, it takes some time to cover all these things. If I just want to go through all these things, you can go through the PDF only. So, if you feel it that you have less of time, right, so you can just go through the PDF, otherwise you can watch the classes, because it takes time to explain certain things. although I'm trying to complete these things, in best and fastest possible manner, it was a break, otherwise it would have been completed by now. So let's continue further. So this is the highlight of the Polavaram irrigation project. They are focusing on that. Apart from that, under the Act, for promoting industrial development, funds will be provided for essential infrastructure such as water, power, so for essential infrastructure related activities, which are basic infrastructure facilities like water facilities, power facilities, railways, roadways, right, they will be developed, particularly in, remember this thing, Koparthi node on the Visakhapatnam-Chennai industrial corridor and Orvakal node on Hyderabad-Bangalore industrial corridor. So what are these nodes? These nodes like Koparthi node and Orvakal node, these are basically specialty centers or special centers on a particular industrial corridor, okay, on a particular industrial corridor. So they will be developed. These facilities, they provide facilities and support for the further enhancement of the industrial activities, right. So remember Koparthi node on the Visakhapatnam Chennai industrial corridor and the Orvakal node on the Hyderabad-Bengaluru industrial corridor. Then additional allocation will be provided this year towards capital investment. So capital investment will also be boosted in the state. Grants for backward regions. So there are certain backward regions in the state like Rayalaseema, then you have Prakasam, then North Coastal Andhra, as stated in the Act, will also be provided. So these backward regions, they will receive certain grants for their development, right. So this is government's focus. Apart from Purvodaya, which is Bihar, and we have discussed the projects in Bihar, this is the focus in the Andhra Pradesh. Remember Polavaram project, these two nodes and the backward regions of Rayalaseema and all, they will receive grants for their development activities. Then further, if you see in the human resource priority only, next scheme is PM Awas Yojana, PM Awas Yojana. Under this, 3 crore additional houses under PM Awas Yojana in rural and urban areas in the country, they have been announced, for which necessary allocations will be made. So basically, under PM Awas Yojana, for both the rural and urban areas, they have announced 3 crore additional houses. So remember this data, 3 crore additional houses will be there, okay, 3 crore additional houses. Also, then women-led development, of course, they are also focusing upon women-led development. For promoting women-led development, the budget carries an allocation of more than 3 lakh crore for schemes benefiting women and girls. So overall, they have not, in this thing, we are not discussing about a particular scheme. Overall, any scheme related to development for women and girls, they have allocated more than 3 lakh crores particularly, okay, more than 3 lakh crores particularly for women and girl development, right. So this is the thing. Then you have Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan. So Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan, as the name suggests, this is Janjatiya. So this is for tribal population, right, as the name suggests, this is. So the finance minister has announced that, for improving the socio-economic condition of the tribal communities in India, there are varieties of tribal communities. India has a very rich and diverse heritage of tribal communities as well, endemic to specific regions, right. So their socio-economic upliftment has also been always a priority for the government of India. So for them, the finance minister has announced, for improving their socio-economic condition, the government will launch, they are planning to launch Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan. Remember this, Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan. So what is the aim? They will also adopt saturation coverage, extensive coverage of all tribal families in the tribal majority villages. So they will target the tribal majority villages and they will try and cover each and every tribal family. Saturation coverage, extensive coverage, and aspirational districts as well. So not only the tribal majority villages, they will also cover the tribal families and communities of the aspirational districts. Aspirational districts, it is a very important scheme, initiative launched by the government, which aimed to develop the around 112 most underdeveloped districts of the country, right, to make them aspirational districts to be followed by others. So they will also cover the aspirational districts. So covering 63,000 villages. Almost under this, how many villages will be covered? 63,000 villages, and it will benefit almost 5 crore tribal people. It will benefit around 5 crore tribal people. So remember this thing, benefiting 63,000 villages and 5 crore tribal people. It is another important initiative for that matter. Also remember, aspirational districts as well as the tribal majority villages will be covered here. Next, if we talk about, apart from it, the bank branches in northeast region. So for developing human resources, credit availability is important. So bank branches in northeast region is also highlight of the budget. More than 100 branches of India Post Payment Bank, more than 100 branches of India Post Payment Bank, they are planning to set up in the northeast region, particularly to cover the region extensively with all the banking facilities, or in one word you can say that to extend financial inclusion in the area, right, or the unbanked or underbanked areas of northeast regions. So more than 100 branches of India Post Payment Bank. India Post Payment Bank, as you know, is a public sector bank, right? So it aims at covering the underbanked or unbanked areas in the country. So more than 100 branches of India Post Payment Bank planning to be set up in northeast region. Remember this thing. Then allocation for rural development, of course. So this year government has made a provision of how much? 2.66 lakh crores particularly for rural development. So remember this data, 2.66 lakh crores. 2.66 lakh crores particularly for rural development, and which also includes rural infrastructure related projects, right? So 2.66 lakh crores for rural development. This is completion of priority 3, which is highlighted by the budget. As you all know, there are 9 priorities they have highlighted. So moving on to priority 4, which is manufacturing and services, right? So we are done with priority 3. Now we are moving ahead with priority 4. So fourth priority, as you can see, fourth priority is manufacturing and services. Of course, manufacturing and services, very, very important sectors. Government cannot ignore them, right? So let's see what they are planning to do under this priority for manufacturing as well as for the services sector. First thing is support for promotion of MSMEs. So of course, MSMEs is a priority sector for the government of India. They have continuously brought schemes for the development of MSMEs. So this budget also has something for MSMEs, which is again very, very important. The questions from MSME sector have been asked, right? So how are they planning to support the MSMEs? So this budget basically it provides special attention as always to MSMEs and manufacturing, particularly labor intensive manufacturing. Remember, the highlight of the budget is that they are promoting or they are trying to cover the labor intensive units. So labor intensive manufacturing, or where the labor is highly utilized, is the target of the government to promote or to assist financially those industries and those units, and particularly the MSMEs associated with manufacturing. That does not mean that the government is ignoring the services sector, but also manufacturing is one of the highlight. Remember one more thing, that in a country, a most populous country of the world, you have labor intensive industries in majority as compared to capital intensive, because you have more labor, so and cheap labor available, so it becomes cost effective to employ more labor in comparison to technology. So addressing labor intensive manufacturing is essential if you want to provide the youth with quality jobs, right? So this is the thing government is also focusing upon. Next, what you have is government, they have formulated a package. So package covering financing, regulatory changes and technology support for MSME. So there is a full package. They are planning to assist the MSME sector in almost all directions and dimensions. There are particularly schemes, they have also been launched. We are going to cover them in the following series, right? So remember this thing. Next, this again, this scheme is related to your MSMEs. Credit guarantee scheme. So credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs in the manufacturing sector. Credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs in the manufacturing sector. So for facilitating term loans term loans to MSMEs for purchase of say machinery and other related equipments without collateral. Now this is very, very important. I am saying again and again, remember this thing, this is a new kind of experiment government wants to do. So try and understand, this will boost the MSME sector. So what the government is planning to do, so if there is a particular MSME related to any manufacturing sector, right, wants to purchase say machinery and equipment without collateral, it will help them. How? Or say using a third party guarantee, a credit guarantee scheme will be introduced for this purpose. Under this, it will operate on a pooling mechanism where the fund will be pooled by the MSMEs only, right? So they have to contribute as upfront and annual guarantee fees that will be used as security. So they will not be, they are not required in that case to provide some physical collateral. So this, eliminates the use of any physical collateral, because sometimes you don't have these MSMEs, they are small enough, that's why the government is planning to promote them. So they don't have proper physical assets. In that case, they sometimes lack the credibility of taking the loans, right? So this is how it will operate. It will operate on pooling of credit risk. So the credit risk will be pooled. How? So the funds will be contributed by the MSMEs and the risk will be divided. So they don't require a physical collateral. A separate fund will be created, self-financing guarantee fund. So this is how the mechanism will be. A separate self-financing guarantee fund will be created. Now self-financing guarantee fund. So guarantee fund, it will be a guarantee fund. So you don't require any physical collateral. I hope you have understood guarantee fund. Self-financing, so they only have to pay it. So it is not government backed. Okay. They only means the MSMEs will contribute a bit. So all will contribute. So it will create a pooled fund. So it will also divide the risk. This will be the manner in which the self-financing guarantee fund will be created. So a separately constituted self-financing guarantee fund will be provided to each applicant and guarantee cover up to, so out of this guarantee fund, remember the amount, how much guarantee cover will be provided. So guarantee cover up to 100 crores, will be provided. Loan amount can be more than that as well, but guarantee cover up to 100 crores will be provided. Loan amount can be larger than this figure or bigger than this figure. Okay, so remember this thing, under the credit guarantee scheme, guarantee cover is up to 100 crores. Remember this thing, right? Guarantee cover will be up to 100 crores. Also, the borrower will have to provide an upfront guarantee fee and annual guarantee fee. This is how everyone will contribute. So this is how it will be a pooled fund, right? So the borrower, say the MSME is the borrower. So in that case, MSME will have to provide an upfront guarantee fee. So guarantee fee, they have named it as guarantee fee. You have to contribute as for creating this guarantee fund. Upfront will be one time if you are borrower, if you want to borrow something, if you want to take the loan or anything, right? So upfront guarantee fee, one time fee, and then annualized it will be, okay, and then annual guarantee fee up to the tenure of your loan amount. Is that clear? So this is important, remember this thing. It basically, credit guarantee scheme under this year's budget eliminates the requirement of physical collateral. This is the highlight. I hope you have understood this. And moving ahead, so then also, so there is not only one single scheme for MSME, they are experimenting to boost the MSME sector from various dimensions. So this was the first. Next is new assessment model for the MSME credit assessment or risk assessment basically. So what is this new assessment model? So earlier they relied on some external assistance, so how do you assess the risk or how do you assess the credibility basically before extending the loans? So you can have in-house facilities, you can have internal assessment system where you have your own auditors and all, but you can have external assessment facilities as well. So in external one, you hire some outsiders, auditors, etc., right? So both have their pros and cons. In internal one, it is cost effective, you don't have to pay to some outsider, but then it can be biased for the institute, right? So there is a chance of biasness. Then you have the other thing, external assessment system for the risk assessment and credibility, assessing the risk associated with a particular credit amount. So all these things, if you hire someone from the outside of your institution, that reduces the biasness, but then it becomes expensive, you have to bear a cost. All these are the pros and cons. So right now what we are discussing is that the public sector banks particularly for MSMEs, they are planning to build their own in-house capability to assess the credit risk for the MSMEs. So in-house they will try to develop their own. Also the mechanism used is also to be changed. Now what is this change? This is important. So first thing is, instead on relying on external assessment, in-house assessment will be there. Then public sector banks will develop a new credit assessment model. What is this new credit assessment model? It is based on scoring the digital footprint of MSME. So this is the highlight, digital footprint of the MSME, digital footprint. Now, you know what happens is, MSMEs, there are a lot of MSMEs, India has a huge informal sector, right? Unorganized sector, which is not registered. The entities are not registered, the employees, they do not get the social security benefits and all. So covering that sector becomes a bit of task. In that case, you have several MSMEs operating which are not registered properly. So it becomes difficult, to assess their credit risk on the traditional method which we have been following. What is the traditional method? So in the traditional method, we have used the past record, say, of loan repayment and all. Apart from this thing, if government plans to do what? If you just try to track their digital footprint, whatever digital activities we can track, they have been following, say their transactions, their web searches, right? On which websites they have tried to reach out, whatever online transactions there are, these kind of information which we can extract from their digital search basically. So it will be the digital footprint. Now if you try to use this digital footprint or information to assess the risk, in that case, whatever MSMEs which have not been part of the proper accounting system, or say they have not been properly registered, they will also be able to get a proper risk assessment and the loan accordingly. I hope you have understood this concept, right? So this is the thing, scoring of digital footprints for MSMEs in the economy. Now this is expected to be a significant improvement over the traditional assessment, as I told you, in the traditional assessment of credit eligibility, which was based on, say, turnover criteria, asset, their history of loan repayment and all, right? So sometimes you don't have proper records of what was your turnover criteria, of what all assets do you hold, right? What is the net value of those assets? So sometimes those MSMEs which are not properly registered, they don't have proper formal accounts, they suffer from this traditional method. But now we have everything digitalized. In that case, tracking the digital footprint of the MSMEs for their risk assessment will be a welcome step, right? Next thing, also, so they will also cover MSMEs without a formal accounting system. So it will help covering MSMEs without a formal accounting system. So it will help basically formalize the MSME sector or manufacturing sector in India. So it is serving a lot of purposes in that case. Moving ahead, what next do they hold for MSMEs? So they have got a lot of packages for MSMEs. Next thing, they have announced credit support to MSMEs. Credit support to MSMEs, during stress period. So we classify these assets, we classify these companies. If they are not stressed assets, stress period will be what? When they have a stress on their loan, they are not able to pay back, for example. So say if they have been categorized in SMA category, any SMA. So SMA is a special mention account, as you all know. So when there is, say, default of up to 30 days, right? So it is SMA 0, then 31 to 60, SMA 1, and then 61 to 90, you have SMA 2, all these categories. So it depends on the days, number of days of default which has been incurred. Now, this wants to support in that stress period. We have classified that, okay, if some entity is not able to pay back the loan, but government has realized that in that period they require some assistance, right? Because they have stress, they have to pay back the loan as well as they have to carry out their business activities. So a new mechanism for facilitating continuation of bank credit to MSMEs during their stress period. So their banking activities should not get stopped even if they are classified into any of the SMA categories. This is the purpose. While being in the special mention account stage, as I told you, SMA, special mention account, you all know we have discussed this thing a lot many times, right? SMA. So you have standard assets, no default, then you have SMA categories as I have explained depending on the days of default, and then you have NPA, right? So even if you are in SMA for reasons beyond your control, sometimes the reasons may be beyond your control. That's why you might be in the SMA categories, but in that period also you need credit to carry out your banking functions, or say you need banking support to carry out your functions, your activities, whatever you are involved in, right? So MSMEs need credit to continue their business and to avoid getting into NPA stage. So if you don't support them during SMA stage, then the next stage which is awaiting them is of course NPA, right? Next stage awaiting them is NPA. So to prevent them from entering into the next stage of NPA, it is essential to support them in the SMA category. So remember this thing, credit availability will be supported through through a guarantee from the government promoted fund. So they are planning to support such MSMEs in the SMA category. The guarantee will be given by the government. So guarantee will come from government promoted fund here, not self contributed fund, unlike the earlier scheme, right? So this is the plan. Next, Mudra loans. For Mudra loans, you know what are Mudra loans, right? So they were initiated. Any person involved in the non-agricultural related activities as per the eligibility of Shishu, Kishore, Tarun, there are three categories. In Mudra loans, you know, there are three categories: Shishu, Kishore and Tarun, right? So providing loan facilities or credit facilities to small entrepreneurs and all. Shishu, you know, is up to 50,000, Then you have say up to 50,000 to then 5 lakh is Kishore, and then from 5 lakh to 10 lakh was your Tarun category. These category of loans are there under Mudra. You must know that. So the limit has now been increased to 20 lakh. So limit of Mudra loans will be enhanced. The government is planning to do that up to 20 lakh from the current 10 lakh, which I told you under the Tarun category, for those entrepreneurs who have availed and successfully repaid previous loans under the Tarun category. So these might also promote certain MSMEs, right? So any in that case, any entrepreneur, any entity which is there, which has availed say loan under this Tarun category of Mudra loan and has been successful in repaying it at proper time, designated time limit, in that case that loan amount can be extended up to 20 lakh, provided that you have availed such loan earlier up to 10 lakh and you were successfully able to pay it back, right? So remember this thing. In that case, you can access up to 20 lakh of loan under Tarun category of your Mudra loans. Next thing the government is planning to do is just a second. Next thing which we have, enhance the scope for mandatory onboarding in TREADS. Now TREADS is a very important platform. TREADS, you know what is TREADS? Trades. It is trade receivables and discounting system, right? So, trade receivables and discounting system, right? Trades. What is this platform? The government is planning to enhance the scope of this platform. So, trades basically, it has been set up under the guidelines of your RBI. So, in this, you have sellers, try to understand, you have sellers, trades. So, this is your trade receivables and discounting system. So, what happens is, you have sellers here, you have buyers, right? And then you have financiers. You have three entities which are there. So, sellers, this is meant for MSMEs particularly. So, what happens is, there are MSMEs, they sell their products, right? Now, the MSMEs are also sellers to big corporate houses, sometimes also to departments of various government ministries, right? So, government departments, corporate houses, they sell to them. Now, what happens is, sometimes they do not receive the payment on time. So, they have the invoice, the payment has to be made in future, for example. So, they have the MSMEs, they have the trade receivables, right? They have the invoices, which the payment which is to be received by them, which say sometimes the government departments also, they delay the payment. So, the corporate houses also. So, meanwhile, if they require fund, they can use these bills of exchange, to get funds from this platform. So, your sellers on this platform, trades, will be your MSMEs, buyers will be your government departments, corporate houses, etc. Okay, these will be your buyers, and then financial institutions, as specified timely by RBI, will be your financiers. They will participate. So, this is just bill discounting system. Like, so say if you have a bill of say 1 lakh rupees, but the payment is outstanding, that MSME has to be registered on this thing, trades, right? And the buyer can be anyone, the government or the private buyer. You have an invoice. So, with the help of these financiers, you can use that invoice, say 1 lakh rupees someone owes to you, right? But you need immediate payment. You can go with the bank or the financial institution eligible as the financer, and you can get a discounting facility on it. So, say you receive 97,000, right? So, remaining this discounted portion will be kept by bank as interest or the fees, and then the remaining portion will be covered by the entity on the time of maturity from the customer. But you got the payment when you needed it. I hope you have understood this thing. So, this is how it works. Yes or no? Trades, right? So, there are criteria to be for these entities to be registered here. So, this is how it helps the MSMEs to get funds in time of any crunch or any liquidity crunch, right? This is the thing. I hope you have understood. Moving back, this is what trades is basically. Right? Now, this is important, this data. You have understood the mechanism. Now, the data is also important. Data says that the government has enhanced the scope for these entities to be registered. So, for facilitating MSMEs, government has proposed to reduce the turnover threshold. So, there are criteria on the basis of which you register yourself on this trades platform. So, the turnover threshold for the buyers which will be there, the private buyers or the government departments, for mandatory onboarding on the trades platform, from 500 crores to 250 crores. So, if your turnover, say earlier the criteria was that you should have this much turnover, but now it has been reduced. So, the turnover criteria has been reduced from 500 crores to 250 crores. That means now small enterprises can also register, and in that case more facility will be provided to the MSMEs for availing the loans, right? or they can use the bills of exchange from these buyers as well for discounting basically on the platform, right? So this is the thing. Remember the amount that the threshold has been reduced from 500 crores now to 250 crores. 250 crores, right? This measure will bring, so the data only says, the budget only says that this is expected to bring 22 more central sector enterprises, and so it will help more central sector enterprises to be registered, on this platform. So it will help MSMEs. Also 7,000 more companies onto the platform. So reducing this threshold is expected to reach out to these figures, right? 22 more CPSEs and then 7,000 more companies onto this platform. Medium enterprises now will be able to be included on TRED's platform, right? Next, moving ahead, so this was important. Remember, from 500 it has been reduced to 250 crores. SEBI branches. We have seen recently that India Post Payment Bank, their branches will be open up in the Northeast region also. So see how government is continuously focusing upon banking penetration, right? Improving the banking facilities and services in non-banked and underbanked areas. Also your SEBI branches, so Small Industries Development Bank of India, SEBI branches in MSME clusters will be established so that it becomes easier for MSMEs to get facilities out of SEBI. SEBI has been meant to promote the credit availability and providing financial services to small industries, right? So SEBI will open new branches to expand its reach to serve, major MSME clusters. Within 3 years, they are planning to do that, okay, and provide direct credit to them, so that credit availability to these clusters, to these MSME units becomes easy and viable. With the opening of 24 such branches this year, the service coverage will expand to 168 out of 242 major clusters. So after this happens, so presently if you see the major MSME clusters where there are majority of the MSME industries located, so out of around 242 major clusters, adding, even if they open around 24 such branches, if SEBI opens 24 such branches, so the coverage will be expanded to 168 clusters out of 242 major clusters. 168 clusters out of 242 such major clusters. So remember this figure, right? This is the thing. I hope you will remember this, 168 out of 242 major clusters, right? Next thing now which we have in the series, so this was again for MSME and next one is also again for MSME. So you see how MSME is an important topic for you, right? So remember, every data related to MSME they can ask you. MSME units for food irradiation, quality and safety testing. They are also planning to have more MSME units related to food irradiation, quality and safety testing. Now what is food irradiation? So basically food irradiation is a process in which you try to preserve the food from getting spoiled. Say you try to, we have packaged food, right? So we try to increase the shelf life of the food. So to increase the shelf life, there are certain techniques adopted. One such technique is food irradiation. In food irradiation, you use the gamma rays and all to ionize that food, right? So this is food irradiation. Understood? So they use certain these gamma rays and all in the process to increase the shelf life. So MSME units, they are planning for food irradiation, their proper quality testing, their safety testing. So financial support will be provided to such units by the government. Financial support for setting up of how many such 50 multi-product food irradiation, 50 multi-product food irradiation units in the MSME sector. So remember this number as well, 50. So they will provide the financial assistance to 50 multi-product they can be, not related to a specific product. Multi-product food irradiation units will be helped financially, right, to be set up in the MSME sector. So this is also promoting MSME industry. Also setting up of 100 food quality and safety testing labs. So they also want to establish 100 food quality and safety testing labs. So apart from this 50 MSME units for food irradiation, they want to have proper food quality testing labs, right? So 100 of such food quality and safety testing labs will be set up with National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratory. So with NABL, accreditation will be facilitated. So they should be accredited with NABL. So such labs, 100 food safety labs, they are planning to establish, and they will get accreditation from NABL. NABL is one of the constituent body under your Quality Council of India, right? So it gives these quality checks, it does the tests, it does the proper testing for the laboratories, right? So and then it gives further recommendation for setting up of these laboratories, which then further test the quality of the food. So they will be accredited by NABL, right? I hope this is clear. So 100 such labs accredited by NABL and 50 multi-product irradiation units under MSME sector, right? Any doubt so far? Yes, everything is fine now. So I was not well, you know, viral हो गया था मुझे, so that's why it took a bit long to recover. But now I will try to, yes, I understand all your concerns. I respect all your concerns because you have to prepare within a stipulated time, right? So we will cover as fast as possible, also with the best possible manner. I'll try having these classes on regular basis. So we will have these classes now on regular basis, at least for budget, and we will complete the remaining FSR as well quickly. Okay, so don't worry, we will do that. Next thing. So this is the thing, right? Again, focus on MSME. Next, we have e-commerce export hubs. So to enable, so this is entirely focusing on MSME only. You see, everything is related to MSME, right? To enable MSMEs and traditional artisans to sell their products in international markets. So we want to provide them with the international opportunity and markets. We want to provide them access to international market, right? So that our MSMEs can compete internationally and then generate good amount of revenue as well. So to enable MSMEs and traditional artisans to sell their products in the international markets, e-commerce export hubs, they will be set up on a PPP model, public-private partnership model. These hubs will be there, which will enable these e-commerce related MSMEs to export their products easily, right? So PPP model mein they will be developed, public-private partnership. You know what is PPP, right? So in PPP, there are several models under PPP, like BOT toll, BOT annuity, hybrid annuity. All these models are there, we need not discuss them. But what the basic idea of PPP is that you have public and private partnership. You know, sometimes private, they provide you technology, they provide you expertise, state of the art technology and all, efficiency, and then the government can bear the cost. So sharing the projects, sharing on some basis, say funding will be done by, say, government, or say the toll model, in which the initial cost and all these things are done by the private, and then once they generate their cost, they cover their cost, they transfer it back to the government. So these kind of PPP models are there. So public-private partnership model pe it will be developed. These hubs, they will not create pressure on the government because private will also be there. So revenue will be shared, right? Yes, BOT, yes, build, operate, transfer, like toll. So all your tolls are manufactured on this. That's why we also call them BOT toll model, build, operate and transfer. So you build, you operate it, you cover your cost and then transfer it to the government, because sometimes government, you know, already has a higher fiscal deficit, becomes less viable for the government to run such projects, right? So it will be developed. These hubs, they under seamless regulatory and logistic framework, they will facilitate trade and export related services. So they will facilitate trade as well as export related services. So whatever e-commerce products you have, you can also export them. So MSMEs will get basically export access, easy export access. Then measures for promotion of manufacturing and services. Apart from this, for MSME sector, we will continue the editorials as well. Measures for promotion of manufacturing and services. Now, internship opportunities they want to offer. This is again very important, and remember the figures as well. You know, we have been focusing, this has been in the public discourse for a long period of time, that Indian youth does not have sufficient market skills which can fetch them jobs, right? So government is continuously trying to have concerted efforts to fill this gap. In that series, this thing, internship in top companies, the government is planning as the fifth scheme of this entire package. Government will launch a comprehensive scheme for providing internship opportunities in 500 top companies to 1 crore youth in 5 years. So almost they are planning to provide to almost 1 crore of the youth, of Indian youth, in upcoming 5 years, internship opportunities in the top 500 companies, right? So they will provide them with the market exposure, how the work is done, right? So they can get the market skill as well. This is the thing which they are planning to do. So it is easy to remember, you know, 5 years and 500 top companies and 1 crore youth, right? So they will gain exposure for 12 months. So it will be, say, for 1 year to real life business environment, varied professions and employment opportunities. So they will basically have, the youth under these schemes will have practical knowledge of how to, say, run a business, how to run a particular work, how to operate in a particular field. They will have a real time experience. It will give them real time skill to further expand their scope, right? So this is how they are planning to do this. Next, an internship allowance is also, so it will be stipend, okay? So they will gain exposure. Also an internship allowance of, say, 5,000 per month will be there, along with one-time assistance. So 5,000 will be per month as internship allowance, but there will be one-time assistance of 6,000 which will be provided. This will be only one-time assistance, and then monthly payment will be 5,000 per month. Monthly payment would be 5,000 per month. Remember this thing. Companies will be expected to bear the training cost. So companies will be expected to bear the training cost as, you know, 10% of the internship cost. So 10% of the internship cost, which includes the training cost, that will be beared by the company itself, and remaining will be beared by the government, right? So companies will be expected to cover, of course, it will be on a voluntary basis, and those who are involved, they will have to cover this cost. So this is the thing, remember, 1 crore youth, 500 top companies, 5 years, okay? 5,000 per month payment, and one time payment would be 6,000. This is the thing. Next, you have industrial parks. The government is also under human resource development priority. You have planning for industrial parks. Development of investment ready. So this is what they have called in the budget, plug and play. Plug and play industrial parks. So this model, plug and play. Plug and play means which is ready. You know, sometimes you develop industrial parks, then you attract business opportunities, companies. They require huge time to start. Sometimes it requires huge investment, sometimes it is not investment ready. But plug and play model says those such industrial centers will be developed which will be immediately, or they will be, you know, they can be used and accessed readily, immediately. You will not require huge investments or long time to start your business over there. It will be ready to use basically, right? So ready to use industrial parks will be there with minimal investments, and you can start your business operations with complete infrastructure in or near 100 cities in partnership with the states and private sector by better using town planning schemes. So utilizing town planning schemes, coordinating between states and private sectors around near 100 cities, 100 cities के पास में they are planning to develop these parks. 12 industrial parks under the National Industrial Corridor Development Program is their target. Okay, so remember this figure, right? Then you have another important initiative by the government, which is rental housing. So you know what happens is there are people who migrate to work in the industries, right, and do not get proper accommodation. You see COVID time mein, in COVID-19, so there is this migration. We have discussed in one of the editorials, our editorials, that there is this wave which went back to their villages, right, because they were not able to afford living in the cities. So sometimes it becomes difficult. So how do you utilize or bring back that labor? You have to provide them with certain schemes and incentives. This is in such line. So rental housing with dormitory type, accommodation type for industrial workers, they are planning to facilitate. This is a very important and new kind of initiative, will be facilitated in again PPP format. So the format will be public-private partnership mode with viability gap funding support. So they are planning to establish rental accommodations near these industrial centers to provide with proper and affordable renting facilities, accommodation facilities on rent to these industrial workers. So this will promote them, this will incentivize them to move out of their houses, they say their villages, and then come to work, right? So we can have more percentage of the labor force in the workforce in that case. And this will be on PPP model. Also there will be viability gap funding. What is viability gap funding? So certain projects are there which are sometimes, not viable economically for a longer period of time. That means sometimes you have cost of the project and you have a longer time in which you expect the revenue to be generated out of the project, right? So that to sustain the viability, to sustain the project, to have the viability of the project, you need to fund that gap. So you have project cost which you have to incur when you start a project, but then sometimes there are huge long-term projects which take a very long time to generate revenue to cover the cost. So that gap has to be funded. So government is planning to fund that viability gap so that it does not go into losses and these services can be provided to the industrial workers, right? What is this viability gap funding scheme which government plans to implement under this? So they approved it on 25 July by Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. So Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, as you know, is one of the important committees and is chaired by Prime Minister of India. Okay, so for financial support, as I told you, funding that gap, viability gap, it is there. It will be implemented by Department of Economic Affairs under the Ministry of Finance. So it will be viability gap funding for this rental housing will be implemented by Department of Economic Affairs of Ministry of Finance. Now remember this data. What is important for you here is 60% of the total project cost, whatever for such rental housing projects, whatever the total project cost is, 60% of that total project cost, but that should be only up to maximum 30% by the central and the state governments each for the social sectors like water supply, wastewater treatment or solid waste management and health education. These industries where they are employed in these industries, right, will be beared. So 60% of the total project cost, but that should be maximum up to 30% by the central and state governments each, right? So this will be beared. This much will be provided by the government. For which industries and accommodation near them? These, say industries related to water supply, wastewater treatment, solid waste management and all, health and education. Also then up to 80% of the total project cost for industries related to other sectors like say pilot projects or some demonstration projects related to health and education sectors, up to 80% and maximum 40% each, central and state governments. So maximum 40% of the will be burden on the center and the state. 80% of such total project cost will also be borne by the government. So this scheme will be administered by an empowered committee, right? Empowered committees, they are special committees for a particular purpose, they are created. And what will be the composition of this empowered committee? So I hope this much is clear. Now we are discussing the composition of this empowered committee. This is also again important. They can ask you, so what will be the, who all will be the members of this empowered committee who will administer this scheme, rental housing scheme? So this empowered committee will have a secretary, okay? So the member will be secretary of economic affairs, then CEO of Niti Aayog, then you have secretary of Department of Expenditure, right? Then you have secretary of the line ministry dealing with the subject. Line ministry means whatever the concerned ministry for a particular scheme is. Secretary of that ministry will also be a member. Joint secretary, the DEA, right? Member secretary of DEA will also be there. So these will be your members under the empowered committee. These will be your members, right? So Secretary Economic Affairs, CEO Niti Aayog, then you have departmental secretaries like Secretary to the Department of Expenditure and all these members. So these will be your members of the empowered committee. Then empowered committee, this empowered committee will sanction this viability gap amount or funding. So this is for the viability gap funding of these rental housing scheme of the government. This committee will sanction the amount up to 200 crores. Beyond 200 crores, if you want to sanction, you will require permission from the finance minister, right? So the committee is empowered. Remember this figure, important it is. So the committee is empowered to sanction amount up to 200 crores for viability gap funding, and the amounts exceeding 200 crores, they can be sanctioned by the committee as well, but then you require the permission of the finance minister in that case. Then you have shipping industry also as the target. So shipping industry also, they want to provide with better ownership, leasing, flagging, logistic, all these rules and regulations for shipping industries, right? So ownership, leasing, flagging. Flagging means when you say the there's a ship ownership of the ship is with some other country, say country X, but then you need to register that with country Y to carry out easy maritime trade, right? So this is flagging, you registered it. So this is known as flag of convenience, right? So flagging, ownership, leasing rules, they are planning to, reforms they are planning to implement to provide easy facilities to the shipping industry as well. Then you have critical mineral mission. Also they are planning to have auctions, you know. So government will set up a critical mineral mission. Here, not talking about the auctions. The auctions are for the mining of these minerals. So government will set up a critical mineral mission. Why they want to set up a critical mineral missions? You know, minerals are very important and there are critical minerals. What are critical minerals? Can you name a few? Yes, anyone? So you have rare earth minerals. They are in news. China is leading in rare earth minerals presently, right? Then you have these lithium and all. So the minerals which are in demand right now, every country wants to have the reserves of these minerals for development of their industries. So these are certain critical minerals, right? For example, I gave you the example of rare earth minerals, then you have lithium, uranium, all these things. So government will set up a particular mission of critical, named as critical mineral mission, To enhance the domestic production of these missions, explore more such minerals, domestic production, increase the domestic production and reduce the international reliance. Recycling of these critical minerals, recycling so as to utilize these minerals at the optimum level, also reduce the pollution. Then overseas acquisition of critical mineral assets. If there are minerals which are not available with each and every country, in that case they will also facilitate overseas acquisition of critical minerals, because these are assets, they are required for several industries and products, for manufacturing of products, right? So this is the thing. So this mission will include technology development, focus will be on technology development, skilled workforce, train the workforce to be employed in these sectors, extend producer responsibility framework. Producer is responsible, these are critical minerals, right? So producer responsibility framework will be extended to all these minerals. The responsibility of the producers is important, as you know. A suitable financing mechanism will be there for promoting these things in the mission, right? Technology development, skilling the workforce and all these things. So for this, financial support will also be provided. This is critical mineral mission highlighted in the budget. Remember this thing. Then you have offshore mining mineral or mining of minerals. Government, so government is also focusing on critical minerals, then other minerals which are there. Minerals are very important resources for your industries. So government will launch the auction, you know, there are auction of these mineral blocks which happen, say coal blocks and all. So government will launch the auction of the first tranche of offshore blocks for mining. Whatever offshore blocks we have, government will initiate the auctions of these offshore blocks, building on the exploration already carried out, so that further activities can be carried out, these can be utilized, whatever offshore mineral sites you have been able to explore. So you are done with the exploration, now building the next steps, carrying out the next steps, utilizing those minerals in the economic activities, right? Then the focus is digital public infrastructure application. You know what is DPI, digital public infrastructure. So common access to all these digital platforms. So basically the providing the governance easily, providing the service easily to each and every customer, utilizing these digital platforms where you have access, everyone has access to them, right? So these digital public infrastructure applications, they want to develop them at population scale for productivity gains, business opportunities and innovation by private sector. So private sector, they are also planning to include digital public infrastructure facilities like we have for the citizens, right? You have, if you want to have any identity cards, you can access them. You have the services which the government provides, you can access them. So it will be extended to private sector for more productivity in the sector, more business opportunities, if there are any for the sector. Then these are planned in the areas of credit. So particularly digital public infrastructure, expanding the scope of DPI in certain core areas they have highlighted, like the area of credit, e-commerce, of course, education, health, law, justice, logistics, MSMEs, services delivery, urban governance and all, so that the governance becomes easy, and these are the priority sectors. The private sector also becomes integral part of all these facilities, providing all these services, right? Next, so this is DPI extension to private sector related to all these sectors. Next you have is integrated technology platform for IBC ecosystem. IBC ecosystem. So what is IBC? You know, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. This was launched in 2016. You know what is insolvency and bankruptcy, right? So when for short term, meeting out your short term liquidity requirements, say payment requirements, you don't have funds, you are insolvent. But then it becomes longer term and you are officially declared bankrupt. So your insolvency is officially recognized to become bankrupt. So you know that the NPA problem has been there with the Indian institutions, financial institutions including the banking system. So earlier, before 2016, we had a lot of laws dealing with them. So government brought out a proper code, insolvency and bankruptcy code, in 2016, which is a very important separate topic. It is a detailed topic, right, which subsumed all these earlier laws. So now it is a comprehensive code which deals with insolvency and bankruptcy proceedings of all these entities, which includes companies, limited liability partnerships, individuals as well, right? So for IBC, government is also planning to have integrated technology platform for this IBC ecosystem, developing this IBC ecosystem. An integrated technology platform will be set up for improving the outcome under the IBC proceedings, so that we can have consistency, transparency, timely processing of all these cases and these services, timely completion of all these pending cases under the IBC code, insolvency and bankruptcy code. So they basically want to provide technical support to IBC process, in simpler terms. Also, voluntary closure of LLP. So these are limited liability partnerships. So in limited liability partnerships, you enjoy the provisions of both kind of firms. You have partnership as well as there is a limited liability of each partner, right? It is unlike proper partnerships. So LLPs kind of firms which you have. One more thing you should remember, that only entering the market is not important. Ease of exit is also something which makes your ease of business, doing business index perform better, right? So when you have ease of doing business, when we talk about ease of doing business, it is not only easily entering the market, but whenever the company wants to easily exit the market, that ease of exit should also be there, so that the companies do not incur huge losses, right? So this is easy entry and exit basically. So in that case, the government is planning the services of Center for Processing Accelerated Corporate Exit. So this is a facility, it is provided under your MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, okay? So the CPACE is operated by your MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, to deal with the companies which want to get out of the MCA register. So they want to exit basically. They want to exit. So this is the system operated by MCA, Center for Processing Accelerated Corporate Exits, right? It will be extended. So they are planning to extend the CPACE of MCA for voluntary closure of LLPs. So whatever LLPs, limited liability partnership firms are there which want to close themselves, deregister themselves voluntarily, it will be extended to them, so that ease of doing business becomes readily available for them, right? So it will reduce their closure time, it will save their funds and all. So this is another initiatives, because LLPs are also covered under the IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So once it becomes easier for you to exit, you also try to manage your funds better, right? Otherwise, if you are involved in longer term exit permissions and all these things, if you are trying to cover up all these clearances which you require before exiting the market, it also requires additional cost. So that would help the IBC process as well as the LLPs, the limited liability partnership, right? So this is the thing. Then you have the NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal. So under these IBC you have mechanism. So your debt recovery tribunal is there, and then your National Company Law Tribunal is there. Debt recovery tribunal, it deals with your individual cases, right? Any individual goes under IPC will be dealt with by the Debt Recovery Tribunal under IBC. Companies and all, their cases are dealt with National Company Law Tribunal. If you are not satisfied with their decision, you can go to National Company Law Appellate Tribunal against them. Have you understood so far, right? So NCLT. Now IBC, as I told you, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, it has resolved more than 1000 companies cases. So NCLT has been actively involved in resolving these cases under IBC of over say 3.3 lakh crore this much amount to the creditors. So they have dealt with this much amount and these cases. The budget highlights this, right? So they have been able to, NCLT has been able to recover this much amount, 3.3 lakh crores. In addition, 28,000 cases involving over 10 lakh crore have been disposed of even prior to admission. So they are properly working in this field, there is timely disposal of these cases as is highlighted. There are 28,000 cases which involve over 10 lakh crores of the amount have been disposed of timely. Appropriate changes to the IBC reforms and strengthening of the tribunal and appellate tribunals will be initiated to speed up further. So basically NCLT is the highlight. They want to speed up the process of insolvency and bankruptcy code related proceedings, so that there is no pendency on the NCLT and NCLAT and the debt recovery tribunal. So they want these processes to be further increased. So they want to they will be in future course of time, in next coming 5 years, whatever they feel reform is important, whatever reform is important and required will be done for NCLT under IBC. This is the focus. Additional tribunals will be also established. If there is requirement of any additional tribunal timely, so they will be established. Out of those, some will be notified to decide cases exclusively under the Companies Act. Particularly, out of them, certain will be empowered to decide cases related to Companies Act particularly, right? So this is the focus. Why is this focus? Because it will then enhance your balance sheets, right? So easy, quick and timely disposal of these cases, which will help these companies also get out of these processes and then again maybe start their business activities. So it will create business opportunities, create a business culture, ease of doing business and all these things, right? Then debt recovery, if we talk about debt recovery, steps for reforming and strengthening debt recovery tribunals, as I told you. So under IBC you broadly have this mechanism. It is a detailed code, but broadly try to understand the individual cases, they are taken up by the DRT, Debt Recovery Tribunal, and the company cases broadly NCLT takes up, right? So the NCLT, they also want to reform, also the debt recovery tribunals, they want to reform and strengthen to deal with the individual cases, right? In this as well, for taking up the individual IBC cases, additional tribunals will be established to speed up the recovery of loan in this process as per IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So additional tribunals for NCLT company related cases and additional tribunals for individual cases will also be established. All these things were there in your priority 4 of human resource development. Human resource development we have completed in manufacturing and services, right? So 4th priority, the manufacturing and services we have discussed. So we have discussed till now priority 4. I hope, can you please let me know everything is clear till now? So we will continue with priority 5 and it will not take much time. We will do this quickly, right? So up to priority 4 we are done. Any doubts so far? I hope you have understood everything. So we will continue from here. Urban development priority, 5th priority, which is there in the next class. We will resume from here. Everything is clear? Yes, anyone? Any doubts? Alright, so since there are no doubts, we will wrap up this session here. Quickly just go through these classes, right? And you have the PDF, just whatever figure is important I am highlighting again, so you can just go through these figures. 1, 2, 3 times revision, you will be able to retain the data, right? So we will resume from here in class tomorrow's class, and we will cover up to maximum content which is possible, right? So I hope this much is clear to all of you. Thank you so much for staying interactive for so long. Also be patient, be rest assured, we will not leave any of these such classes, ever incomplete. So all the remaining portions will be completed. Thank you so much. I wish you a very good day and have a great day. See you in the next class. Thank you so much.